everything needs to link up perfectly throughout that time. So you don't have any
title.
Yeah, you don't want anyone, literally the chains, we want them to all link up perfectly. That way you don't have Joe Schmo's third cousin coming back and claiming any kind of interest in the property. Part of it.
And the chain, just to tie into that, is like if someone received the property as James Smith and then they sold the property as Jim Smith, is it the same person? Maybe, but that's a question on the chain of title. It's like, well, it's a likely nickname, but what if it was Dave Smith? Is it like, well, is that just his middle name?
Yeah.
So you never want that. And then you would have to basically dig in and try to figure out what happened. Is this a legitimate transfer?
And that's part of what you do, right? You do name verifications or social verifications.
So when we do receive that chain of title, then if I'm literally picturing the title abstract in my head, a little bit lower are like the different liens, right? If there's any HOA liens placed on the property, any tax liens, any mechanics liens, if someone poured cement on the property and the owner didn't pay them and they put a mechanics lien on the home. So we check that whole lien section as well.
Yeah.
In addition to, of course, any mortgages on the property as well that would need to be paid off during closing. So this abstract kind of gives us a full picture of the history, and an attorney reviews that in South Carolina. An attorney in our office every day, that's kind of besides the fun closings where we give everyone keys and, chat and take pictures and
the
selfies.
closing is what the client sees.
Yeah.
The title review is like the real work that goes on before people see it. Because you don't get to the closing table if there's an issue at that point.
Fixing that title so they have a clean title.
Exactly. So, there are definitely times where we are resolving issues, sometimes more major, sometimes more minor. But we're kind of always working on the background, trying to issue spot them. So that's the great thing about having an attorney in South Carolina is the attorney's issue spotting, where you can see things that sometimes maybe a title company wouldn't necessarily, I think, zoom in on as much as we do.
Yeah.
We analyze some of those probates or estates. I'm knocking on Tom's door saying, hey, there's an estate or a trust question. Help me figure this out so that we can link up the chain of title.
Okay.
Of course, we tell clients when we run into issues or things that they need to know about. My preferred style is if I find an issue, I spot the issue, I try to find the resolution and solution, and then I can tell the client once I've had a solution.
Gotcha.
I think that's kind of how we all operate. We don't like to get clients really nervous or scared and then be like, stay tuned and then play hero. I kind of like to just have it all mapped out and say, this was the issue, this is how we solved it, you're good.
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of our job, is that whole middle portion of the title part.
Okay.
Have you ever, what can you give an example out of curiosity? What would be an unresolvable issue that you've had that where it's like, like we hit a wall here and.
I mean, the purported seller doesn't own the property.
Okay.
That would be a good example.
Okay. Yeah.
Theft? Is that time theft?
It would be.
Uh-oh.
It'd be a little.
We were going to sneak that one in there.
Actually, last week where someone who they misidentified, the wrong people signed the contract. The sellers, it was in a trust, and they misidentified the trustees. That person was no longer the trustee of that trust.
Okay.
The trust was revoked. There were a lot of different kinds of things going on that we had to figure out.
Okay.
Thankfully, we were able to figure it out, and we were also able to secure title insurance, which is that whole other thing I think we all want to talk about.
Well, we do, because that's the thing. So if you have like liens or things like that, that is only solvable by the seller then, right? Like if they have a federal tax lien or they have a mechanics lien, the only way to really solve that is they have to pay the money.
I mean,
right?
you as the closing attorneys can pay it as well, but obviously that's coming out of the seller's proceeds. Like it has to be paid.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the attorneys can do that, and then you bill it basically.
Well, you disperse all the funds as the closing attorney. So then you just send check to the IRS or check to South Carolina Department of Revenue.
Understood. As long as there's enough money there.
But you have to be sure that it will pay it off.
Okay.
And get a release. Like if you don't have that, that's
taxes get a little sticky, right? Those are one of the tougher ones because you've got to get that payoff.
You have to get those payoffs. But I think for a mortgage, right? If
Yeah.
the person has a mortgage with Gateway Mortgage, you have to order the payoff from them for that final amount, principal balance, interest, everything. They get that total payoff statement, and then we collect it. So that's why as if you're on the purchaser side, right? You want to make sure that none of these things stick to the title.
Got it.
You want to make sure all of those conditions are cleared before you close the transaction, because then it becomes your purchaser's problem down the line.
Yeah.
And the first person the purchaser is going to call is us.
I was going to say,
First person might be the real estate agent.
it likely would be us. So, and which we would say, well, that should have been handled with title. So let's go to that then. So, getting the release and all that do you have to wait for the release to come? Does that happen simultaneously, or is there a?
Are you talking about like a mortgage?
Yeah, so or like a lien or something. So say you do pay it. Obviously it's closed then, right? So you do it out of the proceeds. You send it in. Like, what if there's a lull in getting that release? It's 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, before you actually get it, and it never hits.
Those are a little bit of an exception because I mean, how long does it typically take? Like 3 weeks? Yeah.
They're usually pretty quick, but there is a law and a statute that describes how many days, and I found myself researching it and trying to make someone apply it because the satisfaction hasn't been recorded.